Hello, welcome back to HealthScore. Today we are in the section Your Numbers or Biometrics, and we're talking about the first topic, Body Mass Index. The recommendation, achieve a body mass index of less than 25. The evidence comes from a large meta-analysis of 239 prospective studies across 4 continents. And the recommendation is for a body mass index of less than 25. There is evidence that a body mass index under 20 is also a risk factor, but since overweight and obesity are the predominant problem, at least in the patients I see, I'm going to focus on getting people to under 25 rather than focusing on the group that's under 20. How does being overweight or obese lead to health problems and premature death? Several pathways. From a cardiovascular standpoint, being overweight or obese leads to increased blood pressure and stroke. It leads to increased cholesterol, specifically LDL cholesterol, and that leads to heart disease. It leads to insulin resistance, and that leads to diabetes and further complicates weight gain. It leads to systemic inflammation, which is one of the main reasons it also causes at least 10 cancers. So how to address obesity? Well, first of all, set the goal. Figure out what your body mass index is using an online calculator. Here's a reference. For your height, these are the healthy weight ranges of a BMI under 25. So you can determine what your BMI is. Now, some of my patients say it's all muscle. They're in the overweight category, but they tell me it's actually muscle, not fat. If that's the case, if that's your suspicion, most doctors' offices don't have the ability to measure body fat percent, but a lot of commercial places do. An alternative way of knowing your ideal weight is your body fat percent. And let's say you're muscular and your BMI is over 25, but your body fat percent is less than 19. You can go with the body fat percent of being less than 19 in determining whether or not you're overweight. In the case of someone whose BMI is over 25, but their body fat percent is under 19, they are not considered overweight. That is a healthy body weight. Now, a lot of people will come to me asking me to help them lose weight, but we won't have worked together previously. And I like to encourage them to start from the beginning, start from the other recommendations in HealthScore, rather than targeting weight loss. Weight loss programs and diets are notoriously ineffective, and I think part of the reason is that they're looked at in isolation. So if you take a more comprehensive approach to a healthy lifestyle, the weight will come off as a consequence. But if you target just weight loss, it's easy to make drastic changes that are not sustainable for a lifetime. May lead to short-term weight loss, but usually lead to regain when bad habits resume. So my recommendation is to start with the foundational aspects of sleep, proper mood, exercise, and diet before jumping to the targeted strategies I have for losing weight. So if you haven't done so already, I recommend you optimize these areas before using the strategies in this section. Specifically, limiting alcohol, treating depression and anxiety, optimizing sleep, optimizing aerobic and resistance training, reducing total sitting time and episodes of sitting over 30 minutes, achieving a healthy diet consisting of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, 3 servings of grains per day, 5 servings of beans per week, 1 serving of nuts or seeds per day, 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil per day, 2 servings of 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil a day, 2 servings of omega-3 rich seafood per week, 3 to 5 cups of coffee or 5 to 7 cups of green tea per day, limiting your processed meat, your red meat, and your processed food. So once you get those foundational aspects aligned and optimized, then it's time for you to try these strategies if you haven't seen the weight loss that you're hoping for. My first recommendation is to cook. Americans make 219 food decisions each day. The more times we have to choose, the more we fatigue our willpower muscle. If we are choosing throughout the day, by the evening, all of those resisting temptation efforts we made can collapse and we can end up eating a tub of ice cream plus a meat lover's pizza. So the bottom line is to step outside the willpower struggle and create an environment where it's going to be much easier to make the healthy choice. And the best way I've seen to do that is to avoid eating out and ordering in, to instead to prepare and avoid convenience food, instead to prepare your own food. And there are lots of suggestions I have in the diet section of HealthScore. Next is to design your own meal. You want to take the guesswork out of eating. You want to take the last minute grab for food, or food that you are on the go, or food that's based on your anxiety or boredom or emotions. If you have a meal plan that gives you the time of day to eat and what it is you're going to eat, you're not going to be unnecessarily over focused on food, and your food choices are not going to be overly influenced by your current emotional state. So what that means for me is I'll have a salad for lunch. You can see I don't skip breakfast. I'll explain why in a few slides. Salad for lunch, sauteed vegetables with protein for dinner, oats with a fruit for dessert. Now it sounds kind of boring, like salad every day, sauteed vegetables every day, oats every day with fruit. Really? Well, the fact is there are like 5 different kinds of great tasting salad, about 10 different kinds of things I can put in salad. There are about 30 different vegetables changing throughout the season. There are an enormous variety of seafood and plant-based protein options. There's an incredible amount of fruits that are available in season throughout the year. So although this is a standard template, the variety this allows is enormous. And the fact that I have this template lets me know and prepare well at the grocery store and the farmer's market for what I'm going to need for the week. Next is to stop snacking. So you establish 3 meals that you're going to eat throughout the day, and then you close the door to food that's eaten as a snack. There's 2 problems wrong with snacks. One, snacks are usually done while you're doing something else. So you're not attending to the food, you're not focused on it. That's a recipe for overeating. The second thing is that snacking often results from emotions. If it's unscheduled, you're just eating because you're bored, or you're eating because you're anxious, or you're eating because you need a break. If you can plan ahead and have a meal you're looking forward to, then eating no longer becomes something to do when you're prompted by emotion. It's something you do when the clock tells you. So for me, at noon, I have a salad. At 6 to 7, I'll have dinner, and right afterwards, I'll have that oats and fruit dessert. But let's say I'm bored, which I never get, but that's a different topic. After work and before my dinner time, there are many things I can do to cure boredom, but because I have a structured meal plan, eating is not one of them. You can see that snacking trends very closely with the obesity epidemic. So around 1970, the obesity epidemic in adults just exploded, like more than doubled the prevalence of people with obesity. And well, what do we have here? In that same time frame, the processed food industry made major advances in convenience food. increasing the percentage of patients who snack, almost doubling it. And snacking accounts for almost 600 extra calories per day, which is like adding another meal. They've effectively increased demand for their product without increasing the number of consumers. That is tragic. Next recommendation is to pay attention to the food, the quality of the food you're eating. This was kind of covered in the whole grain section of HealthScore. But the fact is that even if you have a structured meal plan, even if you're cooking your own meals, even if you're not snacking, if you are eating foods that raise your blood sugar, you're going to raise your insulin levels. Insulin is a hormone that's present when we have high blood sugar, and it tells your cells to store any calories as fat. So even if you're under eating and you're on like a 0-calorie diet, if you are eating foods that raise your blood sugar, your body is being told, store this as fat, don't burn it as fuel. So you're going to continue to be hungry and continue to gain weight, even if you're cutting back on your total calories. Foods that commonly raise blood sugar and therefore insulin are anything made from grain that's been refined. So beer, bread, tortilla, cereal, even granola, pasta, noodles, baked goods, white rice, corn, chips, white potatoes, including fries. So we're talking about any time a grain does not look granular, and also starchy vegetables. We're also talking about adulterated foods, foods with added sugar. We're talking about any kind of sweetened drinks, even smoothies. Not having them in their fruits in their solid form tends to lead to overconsumption. And even artificial sweeteners raise insulin levels. Next recommendation is to shorten your eating window. So shortening your eating window allows more time in the day when you're not eating. You're able to return to normal blood sugar, and you're able to start burning fat as energy. When I became convinced by the intermittent fasting literature, which is the same thing as shortening your eating window, what I did is I stopped having breakfast. My first meal is now at noon, and I finish eating before 8 p.m. That means I'm eating over an 8-hour period. I'm fasting over a 16-hour period. An important thing I realized was that hunger wasn't something I had to react to in a knee-jerk fashion. In fact, I had to reinterpret hunger as just my body switching to burning stored energy or fat as fuel instead of burning calories I'm eating as fuel. And that's something to learn and adjust to when you do something like intermittent fasting. If eating over 8 hours or skipping breakfast seems too drastic, just look at your eating window currently, like the time you start eating to the time you stop eating, and just shave 1 hour off of it. Have your first meal an hour later or your last meal an hour sooner. And finally, remove temptation. Over 2/3 of Americans are now overweight or obese. And it's funny that people would think it's a willpower problem. There's no way that the majority of the country suddenly lost willpower over the first 40 years. It is our food environment. If you have to struggle to stay on a healthy path, the game is already lost. You want to structure your environment so you're not forced to make hard choices. So if there's foods that you tend to overeat, get them out of the house. Don't put them in front of you and count on willpower. If there are foods that are healthy but you tend to overeat, for me that's nuts, then buy only enough for the week. If you end up eating all the nuts in the first day, then you won't have any nuts for the rest of the week. So that's another strategy for limiting the overeating. So we've discussed the recommendation to keep your body mass index under 25. We discussed the health risks that come with being overweight and obese. I recommend you start with a foundation of a proper sleep, treat anxiety, depression, have adequate diet and physical activity. And then I went over 6 specific strategies to optimize weight loss. I hope these strategies are helpful, and I hope you can consider them as positive life changes. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.